Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drumfills Kafé. My name is Denis, and welcome so much to the second episode of the 5th season. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Before I begin, as usual, I'm going to invite you to go check out the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram pages of Drumfills Kafé, to do some likes, and of course, to subscribe to those pages. Also, go check out our website, drumfillscafe.com, to check out all the past seasons and to see any other information about Drumfills Kafé. So tonight, my guest, I should say, is quite an intriguing drummer. I think you will be intrigued as well. He has appeared on numerous CDs during his career as a composer and drummer percussionist, including 5 with his group, the Thom Gossage Other Voices group. He has been involved in a wide array of international improvised music settings, including associations with Miles Perkin Quartet, Eric Hove Trio, Roddy Elias Trio, and clarinetist François Hull. He's currently musical director at the dance company for Van Grinder Corps Secret, having created music for the web series, installations, and dance pieces. Please welcome very intriguing, very interesting drummer, Thom Gossage. Hi, Thom.
Hi, Denis.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Thanks for the invitation.
My pleasure. Like I said at the start of the interview, you intrigue me because you're very freestyle sort of drummer, and you've done many different projects over the years. So it's quite. I'm quite interested to get to know you more and to get to know what it is you do. So, first things first. Are you at home? Are you in a studio? Where are you now today?
I'm at home right now.
Okay. And do you get to practice? Did you do anything interesting during COVID times? Are you still active during COVID times?
I've been practicing a lot during COVID times.
I think a lot of us have been. Exactly.
And of course, the compositions I do for Van Grinder Corps Secret, it involves me doing the work by myself for the most part. So that wasn't really a problem during the COVID, but we did have a lot of tours canceled. We were supposed to go to Germany, and we were supposed to go to Morocco, and they got canceled twice. We just finished a new film, a short film.
Okay,
but it's not finished yet, so I'm in post-prod when I put the music to it. So, so practicing, and not here in my apartment. I have another place I practice, and So, and I'm still playing dance classes, which has been a little more a little different when you wear a mask and all the students are wearing.
Right. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's like everybody else. It's quite an upheaval, but I did manage to get some things done, and in a way, it's lucky that I'm not performing as much in venues as I used to. And you see on the CV, I did a lot of performing in a lot of different places, but I'm a bit of a different phase in my career where I'm working for Van Grinder Corps Secret more and composing more. So I wasn't as dependent on that, luckily, because that would have been really.
You mean on the performance, right? On the playing at venues.
On the playing side, yeah.
I understand. Well, yes, you've been active for quite some time. Did you start fairly young? Where did you begin for you when you started to play drums and music?
I actually started as a singer. When I was 10. I was in a band with my brothers. I have 3 brothers who are also musicians.
Okay.
So we were a band called Oedipus Rocks, and also the Gossage brothers. But eventually, my voice changed, And,
Yeah, that
and
13, 14-year-old. Yeah, I can imagine.
that's right.
Yeah.
So I think I got my first kit around 13 or 14,
Hmm.
but there was always, they played in other bands. So there were drums around.
Hmm.
So I imagine I played on those quite a bit, but my first kit was around 13, 14.
And do you remember what was your first kit? I'm always curious to
Oh yeah,
know what it was.
it wasn't a great kit. It was sort of like
It really is.
it was like a old Japanese, before Yamaha,
Oh, okay.
that were really, really cheap. Somebody had taken them down, so they didn't really have a brand name.
Okay.
It was a 22, a 12, and a 16.
Okay.
I think the snare drum was a Premier.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I played a Speed King.
Right. Cool.
You
Classic.
know, so, but the other drummer had a beautiful set, and his name was Larry Hughes, and my brothers played with him in a band called Creation, and he had this set of Ludwigs with 2 bass drums and
Oh, wow.
1 tom in the middle. I
Right.
don't know
Right.
if you remember those ones, and so I played on that quite a bit too.
Did you ever get into the double kick stuff?
I tried it a couple of times, but it's. I could never. I mean, the only reason I would have really wanted to do it would be to do that kind of Billy Cobham,
Yeah.
comes in, you go, wow, where did that come from? Or Dennis Chambers on with Gary Thomas. There's one track where he just does this ridiculous, double. I think it's By Any Means Necessary. And it's like, and then he goes, so I said, forget it, man.
Forget it. Yeah. No,
I'm not
exactly.
gonna, I don't have the discipline, or even, I didn't really, as a sound, it wasn't something I was going to work
You're attracted to, right? I can imagine.
Yeah.
Was jazz a style that was very interesting to you as a young age?
Yeah, well, actually quite young. How it worked is my brothers and I kind of learned all these different styles together as a group. So at the beginning it was rock, and Edgar. I was really into Edgar Winter, and I was into Jethro Tull, and my brothers plays the flute, so Jethro Tull and some of those brass bands, Chicago and all that.
Right.
But then around 14 or something, we started getting into jazz together. So I wasn't jazz police, but I definitely love jazz. Charlie Parker and Max Roach was my guy before I found Elvin.
Right.
I'm assuming I'm talking to a lot of drummers here. They know.
No, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
you haven't lost us yet.
Okay. So in high school, I was playing a lot of jazz, and I was playing in grade 10. At whatever around 15, I was doing like 5-nighters at L'Air de Thom.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and coming into school pretty bleary-eyed the next day.
So even though in teen years you could go to L'Air de Thom to play, really?
Well, I was 5'11" or something, so no one really.
Right. Okay.
And we did a TV show there. We're not there at CBC. It's called Today from Quebec.
Okay.
The brothers did that, and I remember that's when I joined the union at 15.
Wow, very cool.
I bought my set of Gretsch, my first set of real kind of drums. A nice little jazz set of Gretsch, the mahogany finish.
Okay.
And so I was really into jazz, I'll say. And we learned how to play it together. So
with your brothers.
Yeah.
Cool. And I imagine playing like that much time per week would actually, bring you up in your chops and your playing and your interaction with your brothers and that sort of thing. It was kind of a
it was. I mean, I did have a teacher in the West Island, Jamie McMillan. So, but most of it was playing. I practiced you practice your rudiments and learn how to play the instrument. But I did a lot of playing. That was my main way of learning.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't that unique, but That's the way it went for me. Well, maybe it's a little different now because, well, I'm not talking about the COVID times, but you know, I've just heard stories of people going to university and never having played a gig, you know. So that was
No,
definitely not the way it was back in the day, you know, in the 70s that we're talking about here.
yeah, that's why I'm happy you talk about it, because indeed there's more of a study, and less play with people.
Yeah,
And
which
I did.
of course it has its pluses and its negatives. Obviously, the pluses are you have a lot of access to things I would have never had access
Mhm.
to, YouTube and all these. And the other problem is though, I think maybe it obviously it takes the interaction that is being a musician out of the equation. When you're playing with a band, it's a different animal, right? So
And
there's good
especially,
things. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there's good things and there's, you know, I don't want to sort of harp back and go, it was so much better than and all this stuff, because it's sort of how you use it. But I think playing a lot is, you can't really, playing with other people, you can't really replace that.
No, indeed, and I think that kind of goes. We'll talk about it, but I think that goes into your style of playing also. As we go through the projects that you've played with, is that it's very a lot of listening, I imagine, from you to other players or whatever they're playing, picking it up on whatever they're doing at the moment, sort of thing.
Or not picking it up.
Well, yeah, well, not copying it exactly.
Well, we can talk about that later
Yeah.
too.
Well, very interesting. Well, you do L'air du temps, so yes, that was very. I've heard many older drummers talk about L'air du temps, so it's interesting that you talk about it again, because it seemed to be some sort of an institution in Montreal, anyways.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
For seeing players, and also to be, you know, like you say yourself, like to play there,
Yeah.
and to learn your chops, basically. So,
But imagine playing a 5-nighter. I mean, you know, and getting paid.
you can't really do that anymore, I know.
That's this century. You haven't been able to do that. So
Yeah. Let's move on a bit, because you have studied with some interesting drummers. There's a part where basically you did a deck at Vanier College. Was that in music?
Well, I did 2 years first in creative arts at John Abbott College.
Okay.
And then I went to Vanier and I took music after that.
Okay.
So it was about 4 or 5 years in CJ. But I learned a lot, and that's what I was there for. I wasn't too concerned about getting the deck or anything, but yeah, I had a lot of good teachers there.
And anything particular you learned a lot that you still use today from those years? Or is that too philosophical, maybe?
Well, it's more like I think of it as a whole story. I don't know about. Yeah, there is a lot of things I use. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of different things there, but it's not like one thing.
It's a building block towards the other things.
You know, I think one of my teachers I know one of the teachers I really liked was Ronnie Page.
Mm-hmm.
He taught at Vanier, and he just had a lot of stories, and you know, he was good friends with Elvin Jones. And so, you know, I learned that Elvin Jones' favorite rudiment was a 4-stroke rough. So
really?
And it's true when you listen back and you go, yeah, he's using it all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I played in a lot of interesting ensembles there, and of course a lot of the people that, I mean, we played in a lot of groups together. That was a big thing at Vanier. There was ensembles, but there was also groups. Groups of musicians in the program that started their own groups.
Right. I see what you mean.
So I made a lot of musical connections that lasted over the years.
Right. Interesting. When does Drummer Collective come into the play?
Oh yeah, that's a little bit later. I had already started playing dance. I started playing dance classes in 1982.
Okay.
And by 1988, I asked for a grant to go study at the Drummers Collective, a dance. It was in the dance section,
Okay.
sort of broaden my palette
Hmm.
and visit some dance schools there as well. Do you know a little bit about modern dance or?
I am not the most up to date modern dance person, I will admit. I do appreciate it though, because I have seen some modern dance groups, and I am just in awe of what they can do. Honestly,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't necessarily know what if there's a storyline, but I'm still in awe of the
Oh
whole
yeah.
concept of it. Yeah.
Well, there's a famous modern dance company called the Martha Graham Company. She's one of the founders of modern dance. So I went and watched some classes there. Saw other musicians, some percussionists, some pianists play classes. That was part of the grant. And I studied at Drummers Collective with a lot of teachers. I mean, it was more like one lesson each, But
Hmm.
so I took a lesson with Zach Danziger. You know him.
Hmm.
Then of course he was pretty serious. He was only like 19.
Well, that's what I was going to say,
Like,
because he's not. Yeah, I was intrigued. He was already at Drummer Collective at that age.
he's like a young prodigy, right?
Wow.
And
Okay.
he says, let's work on our paradiddles, and then he plays a paradiddle, and it's sort of 170 or something, not too hard a tempo. He says, and then you get it up to the speed. It's like
200 something.
And this guy is 17 years old,
Right.
So yeah, him, Ricky Sebastian, I really liked. He was more New Orleans kind of style, but he had this warm up that I really liked that I used a lot when I got back.
Yeah.
Just sort of around the kit, sort of incorporating the different limbs and the bass drum and the hi-hat. And it was a great warm up. I used it for a lot. Tommy Campbell, I took a lesson with. Well, Frank Malaby, Afro-Cuban.
Cuban stuff, yeah.
And Duda Fonseca, Brazilian.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you. Go ahead.
I still remember it quite well. Obviously, I remember all the teachers. So it was being in New York,
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s. It was pretty intense. That was during the crack epidemic, and it was quite during Reagan, and wow, it was an eye-opener, I tell you. In August.
Right. But that's quite an array of drummers. I mean, Tommy Campbell, Zach Dazinger, Frank Malambe, of course, with the Afro-Cuban stuff. That must have been quite...
it was intense.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was great. I mean, I was the Canada Council. It was great. I got it. Everything about it was, I learned a lot.
Awesome.
Inspiring. Yeah.
And then to finish up your studies, if you will, you have coaching with percussionists from India. I hope to say this correctly. Ganesh Anadan?
Yeah. I played in his band too a little bit.
Talk to me about that.
Well, the Indian thing is is pretty deep, right? So, I mean, I could have worked a lot harder on it, to be honest. I mean, it was just too vast. I also went to India with Catherine Potter later on. I played in a sort of, they call it fusion over there, which is West meets Indian music.
Okay.
It's not the fusion we know, but it's called fusion.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I went to India, which is fantastic. This is much later, but I think some of my, being around Ganesh, and I mean, it helped me for that gig for sure, learning T-highs and some cycles, but I could have gotten much more into it in retrospect, but no regrets,
But in summary, what is it that you learned? Was it the syllables? Was it
the syllables? But I mean, it was the southern syllables, not the northern one that I had sort of done a little bit. So it's kind of daunting. But I played in his band too, which was good too. So I mean, the thing is just trying to hear the sounds of all these things, I think. I mean, you must know Dan Weiss.
Yeah, he came to Kosa.
Yeah. So that's the kind of dedication you're talking about.
Yeah, and for those who are unfamiliar with what we're talking about, his approach was completely different. Like the drum set had sounds, had
Mhm.
syllables, and you would sing those syllables and
Yeah.
play them. It
But
wasn't like,
that's based on an Indian, and that's based on the Indian concept, right?
yeah, and
So
it's
he
not right, left, left, right, whatever. It's
no,
ta ti ta
no.
ta ta, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's
And that's from his tablet training.
right.
It's because they're singing the sounds, and then there's just the names for the rhythms, and then there's the ragas, and then there's this. I mean, it's deep. I listen a lot to Indian music,
Hmm.
but I mean, as a deep student of the music, I wouldn't qualify. You know,
But
one more teacher though is that I studied with Pete McDini.
right, who's also an institution in Montreal. True.
Yeah, and actually, he's the reason I went on tour with Les Miserables for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Peter gave me the gig. Well, I was the sub on the gig,
Okay.
and I did the tour. So yeah, I mean, he was very what's the word, mentoring. You know, to trust me with that gig because it's working with the conductor. It's a 3 hour and 15-minute show. It's fairly big book, and some of the battle scenes are quite challenging. It's not really well written. You sort of have to learn it.
Mm.
Learn it from the guy in New York that comes and teaches it.
Okay.
So they could rewrite the book so it's easier, but I mean, there's like 6 tom-toms and 2 floor toms,
Okay.
and the battle scenes and I mean, the battle scenes are quite in depth, and the way we played it in Montreal, we really tried to do it as the New York version.
Okay.
Try and do it exactly the way they would do it. So I did that for 2 years, and
Okay.
yeah, 8 months. Our second tour was 8 months long.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, how much? I mean, once you know the show, you just kind of repeat it, or does it change? Does it adapt? Does it?
The key is playing it the same. Yeah. No, it doesn't
All the
change.
time. Okay. Okay.
And yeah, that's the challenge, really.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
cool. It's we played on Saturdays. We played 2, 3.5, well, close to 3.5 hour shows.
Wow.
After a week of doing the show, so I had my headphones on, I had my plugs in, I had these big what are they called? The Vic Firth mallets with the
Right.
but the heavier model, not the
Not the small one. I know what you mean. The big ones. Yeah.
And man, I was hitting, so because they really deadened the music. The music was minuscule compared to the voices in the house. So
Okay.
the sound man would say, "Tom, pull out the big sticks and put the plugs in."
Start doing your Keith Moon thing.
Like any gig, it was that's repetitive. I mean, it does get repetitive, but the challenge was to just do it the same every night, but do it at a high level. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Let's move on to what you've done otherwise. Thom Gossage, Other Voices, which is was one of your main groups. Talk to me a bit about that group and who was involved and what did you do with that group?
Well, just a little context of why I sort of got into my own music. I mean, my first compositions were done for Isabelle Benglin for the dance company, and that was the first time I composed for anything.
Okay.
So composing for dance is within the context of movement as well. There's other things happening. It's not just music. Obviously, it's with the movement. So you have to leave some room for the dance to have a space to live in. So it's not, in some cases like Le Sacre de Printemps, it's a finished piece of work and then they dance to it. But generally it's a combination of the movement and the composition that makes it a good thing. So I did a few pieces for Isabelle, and then I said, I'm going to try and start a band and with my own compositions. And so I started Other Voices. Okay. And the first record The first record had Gary Schwartz on guitar and George Mitchell on bass, and I think Remy Balduc and Frank Lozano were already in the band, but that was my sort of introduction to being a leader. You gotta have charts right. You book the studio, and so it was something. It was a big change in my life, and to be honest, I was ready for a bit of a change because what we didn't talk about is all the different kinds of gigs I played in the 80s. I played a lot of club dates. I played with Pagliaro.
Oh, nice.
So heavy rock, and not for long. I was more of a sub, but I learned the book, and Alan McElwain, a bunch of different styles of music, Celtic music. My brother plays Celtic flute and some African music with Yaya Diallo, and so there was a lot of things I was doing, but a lot of club dates as well, which financially was important because that's how I made my money. And
your main bread, exactly.
Yeah, and after still think it's very important to be able to do that kind of thing. It's a challenge, and you can't be too cynical about it. But it does start getting on you, and I was really starting to feel like maybe my love for music, just the club date I'm talking about, not all the other stuff, but playing too many club dates, and I was a backup singer, singing YMCA and all this stuff. It was just
yeah.
It wasn't. I was trying to be a pro, but I think it was a little soul ramming.
I think we all hit that wall eventually where it's like, okay, this was fun. It's been a couple of years, whatever, and it's like, well, am I going to be doing this till my 40s, 50s?
Yeah, it's just all there is to it.
Yeah, you sort of start asking yourself some questions, and and it's great to attain that goal because that's what you dream as a kid,
you're playing, and I remember the first time I got a call to play one, and it was like $200 gig, and it was just yes. Because you're playing dinky little jazz gigs, they don't pay a lot of money, right? But so anyway, I was up for a new challenge, and so I started Other Voices.
And quickly, one of the videos I saw you in was the from the Off Jazz 2016. I think it's called Gridlock, which was the composition. And it's very intriguing. And this is the part where I've asked you some questions because it's not a constant swing. It's not sort of a improvisational places and then back to a swing. It's very free and open and very it's very hard to express it in words. You have to actually hear it and see it. But how would you describe that music, for instance?
Well, there was a few things I was working on with the group as it evolved, and the first two records, it's more, traditional in the sense that there's a melody and there's a groove and there's chords. But in the third record, which is called Number 5, started getting into more open concepts. And Isabel and I were also doing it in dance. It's called open work.
Okay.
So the idea is that the composer gives the performers a piece to finish. So you can give, let's say in Isabel's thing, it would have been movements, a series of movements, and that would be like their material to complete the choreography. Okay. And there'd be places within that, there'd be places they had to go, changes with the music. And so I started doing that in my band as well. And so there was different levels of how much information I would give them. So free music is often it's the individual performer that comes up with those things.
Okay.
So, that's why it's called free. It's not really free because you are making things up. It's not just play whatever you want. You're connecting. But in other voices, it was more about because I wanted to keep the compositional aspect in the music. So depending on the tune, I would give them information. Sometimes it would be tone rows, a series of notes, and they
Okay.
would have to improvise on that. Or other times it would be a group of rhythms, that didn't necessarily have pitches, but they had to sort of play it a little bit and then go from there. And so it was open, but there was work involved. That's why it's called open work.
There's a skeleton, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it can be very specific, or it can be very loose. So I think in Gridlock is more of just kind of a working. Well, it starts with the melody, but the melody is not in any defined time. It's just they play the melody together.
Right,
It's not like I count it in or anything.
Right. It is played, but not necessarily in sort of a 4/4 or whatever. It's just played.
I think it would, if you wrote a chart for it, would say freely.
Right.
And but that doesn't mean you don't have to connect with other people, because it's, everyone, they'll get the other parts on their score. Like the bass will have something to play, and with the guitar, let's say, and the two horns are playing together, but they'll see on their charts, when the bass and the guitar are coming in. So they're connecting. They're just not connecting in a strict tempo. So I think on that tune, the melody was in that vein, and then the open sections were quite open and more based on just the idea of pulse, some kind of pulse, wherever you wanted to take it. Personally, what I do a lot is opposition. If someone's playing busy, I'll play sparse.
I see. Okay.
And what we try to do in the band is often not connect with the other person intentionally, but just let it happen. Like focus on something you're doing, and you see that people connect naturally, right? So that might go against the grain of a lot of jazz teaching, but I find sometimes in jazz it's just you're just trying to prove that you've heard somebody play by copying them. And you can do that quickly. It doesn't mean you're listening anymore. It just means you're good at copying somebody. So if it happens naturally, it's fantastic. But you must have played with people who you play something and they always want to play it right back.
Yeah. Well, you do a phrase and then they play it back.
Whatever. Yeah,
instead of a conversation, it's more of a, oh, look what I can do. Oh, I'll do it too, and sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's part of that kind of competitive, athletic part of jazz that I guess I was trying to get away from. And I think new music has its own dogma too, right? That all the musics have their own dogmas, Some people, just because you play something weird and ugly sounding, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good.
Well, to describe it a bit more, your music, that's the word I keep coming back to, is intriguing, because yes, I've listened to a lot of jazz, I've listened to the rock, to the fusion, and I was listening to what you sent me and what your group is doing, and it's interesting because I never know where it's going to go, and a certain moment gives me a certain feeling.
Yeah.
And then it gives me a bit of tension, and then it's sort of a release, and then there's another feeling, and it's sort of a surprise, and it's it's one of those things where you're sort of listening and going, that's interesting, and you're not sure how, because we're so, as drummers, we're so like, okay, it's where's the time, where's one, where's we're so searching for that sort of safety point, if you will.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily the case, but that's why I was picking your brain to know exactly if, of course, there's structure and how you go into it and that sort of thing. So it's very interesting what you're describing.
Well, one of the things you're talking about is linearity, right? I mean, this idea that everything sort of resolves. And I mean, I have some tunes that are like that. I don't know if you listen to Kelp, but it's one that definitely has, it's a very complicated melody, and it has all these sort of odd meters in it, and
Okay.
they have to play on the structure, and that's the thing, you know, that's, so it's not like I don't want to have that in my music. I just don't
Mm.
want to have that all the time, you
No,
know.
no, I understand. No, no, I understand that it's part of. But to finish it up on this point, I think that's what's interesting as well, is because I'm just gonna let you.
Sorry. Okay.
It's okay. Okay. So that's what I find interesting, though. What you're saying is that, in my mind, jazz is supposed to be this free thing,
Mm.
and yet there's so many structures. Don't play too loud. Don't crash on one. Don't. I don't know, like all these hangups that we have.
Yeah.
So it's refreshing, I will say, to listen to something like that, because I think that's what jazz used to be. I think, or wanted to go, if you will,
Yeah.
some sort. Forgot
And
to go to that direction, if you will.
yeah, because I mean, it's been done so well, right? I mean, you look at the masters, and if you're trying to, well, then maybe that's where the other voices kind of thing is. It's to find your voice and have a
Hmm.
voice. You're looking for something, that's unique, hopefully, or
Hmm.
you're trying to be unique anyway.
Hmm.
And so but it's also an evolution, right? I mean,
Hmm.
like my first compositions, I listened to some of them, and some of them it's very obvious where it's going.
Okay.
So when you have to come out with 5 albums of music, it's going to evolve, and it's going to change. But
Hmm.
and hopefully that in that evolution, you're learning things and you're trying them out.
Hmm.
And that's by playing other people's music. That's by you know people talking to you about open music, because um, I did study. I listen. I read the Anthony Braxton book. I read up on it and what they were thinking about it, and you learn it's not just them playing stuff that sounds different to you. It's very thought out.
And quickly, Anthony Braxton, for those who don't know.
Anthony Braxton is a woodwind player, but he's also one of the he wrote all these sort of open work things. It had graphs, and
Oh,
I
okay.
can't remember the name of his book, but it is a great book. Thought in Motion or something. But he talks about all the different. One thing, this is an important thing for me. One thing he said in the book is that he wanted to take the drummer out of the role of just being a supporter
Hmm. Hmm.
to the other um, musicians. So the drummer had an active role in saying a lot in the music, not just as a supportive role. And I'm not,
Hmm.
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong or anything. I just found it interesting.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if you give a drummer certain sort of parameters to work around, then they're not just gonna. If you tell them to play open, they just play a beat.
Hmm.
That's what they're gonna do unless you give them sort of.
Sort of a shove, just like, no, 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 just
Yeah, don't.
explore.
Like one thing I do, I subbed for Remy Balduc at the McGill in the improv class, and sort of using some of these techniques, for open improvisation. And one of them was equal time. And Rainer Wiens, the guitarist, actually showed me a lot of these things. He's a marvelous new music guitarist, and it's called equal time. So if you play, let's say you play for 15 seconds, you got to shut up for 15 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And and I tell you, it's not easy.
No, I can imagine.
And you know what it does? It makes you think of what you're playing,
Hmm.
because you have to remember how long you played for and what you just played
What you just played.
in order
Interesting.
to. So it's really a cool. There's all kinds of little things like that. Reiner also he divided the drum set into these triangles. Like, there would be a triangle from your left cymbal to your hi hat to your tom tom.
Okay.
That would be like called number one. and let's say a triangle from your left cymbal to your tom-tom to your snare, that would be 2. And so, you have all these different triangles. You had to just play within that triangle for a certain amount of time.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of little things you can do like that to sort of get into what is probably shouldn't be called free, but because it's not, it's not just playing whatever you want. It's sort of setting up some limitations for yourself.
Very interesting. Anyways, I implore people to go check out the Other Voices videos on YouTube. It's like I say, very refreshing and quite intriguing.
Oh, thank you.
Let's move on to what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
And again, correct me if I'm saying this correctly. Not correctly, but Van Grimde Corps Secret.
Yeah.
Which is with the person you keep referring to, I imagine, Isabelle Van Grimde.
Yeah.
Who is a dance company. And you've been part with the company since when?
Pretty much since its inception, I guess 1988, 1989.
Oh, okay. Since then. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And they're quite recognized because I believe in 2011 they got the Canada Council for the Arts awarded to Isabelle.
Yeah.
The Jacques Lemieux Prize in recognition for outstanding contribution to dance in Canada and abroad. Yeah. So yeah, it's very nice.
That was nice that she got recognized for that.
So tell us quickly, what's your association? What do you do for the dance company?
Well, we've had many different periods. There was one period where we did well, my first compositions were more traditional soundtrack, band sonore kind of thing. But then we started doing live shows where we call them choreographic concerts, where I would set up groups, ensembles, and we'd dance. We'd play with the dancers. So we did one with Miles was involved in quite a bit. Miles Perkin.
Miles Perkin, yeah. Was one of the artists you played with, yeah.
Yeah, who was in my band as well. Benoit Delbecq. Do you know Benoit Delbecq? Great.
I do not, unfortunately.
Great piano player. You would love it. It's amazing. One of my favorite piano players. Yeah, but all kinds of different. We in Europe we find musicians and do these choreographic concerts. So that was one of the periods.
Is Symphony 5.1 one of those?
No,
examples?
that's later on, where it was a collaboration with Tim Brady, the guitarist, and we got together and created the score together through our improvisations, and then we worked it with the dance and played it live. So. Yeah, and that was a stage in the company where we're also involved in interactive technology.
Mm-hmm.
So there was things where the dancers' movements would change the shape of the stage and all these aspects, and something that we continued in like Corps Secret, Corps Public.
Another show you're talking about.
Yeah. And so the video you saw of me interacting with the dancers that's out there, I don't remember what it's called.
Symphony 5.1 according to Thom Gossage.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So I wore the GoPro, but that's essentially what I was
about to ask, because I was like, how did he film it? Because it keeps moving as you're playing towards your instruments.
That's right. So I thought it would be one of those, kind of cool YouTube things.
It is. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But it's the end of the show. And what happens is that if I don't hit anything, there's no lights.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
when I hit things, and depending on the density of what I'm playing, I basically control the lighting.
Okay.
So so I really have like I kid with Isabel, I have all the power in that moment, you know. I can completely destroy the show just by not doing anything, you know. I could decide, you know, this big, great artistic decision that I'm not going to play anything. But
could use your 15 seconds of silence and see what
yeah,
happens with
that
the
would be a
dancer.
bad idea. I tried that a little bit, but the problem with that is that, well, sometimes I did that. It was more like I'd try to get really dense, like by playing. I play a lot of the rims, and I found that really got into this. The lights would go, you know, and then I'd stop. Or if I hit my big zoom with the beads on it,
Right.
it would go, and the lights would sort of fade out,
Okay.
and then you could start. So I sort of learned what was interesting by, you know, it was like my drums were lights I was playing. It was amazing.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like you have faders, but instead of faders, it's your drums.
Yeah, like some people completely didn't get that I was doing that, and I said, well, how could we link that up? You know, how could you not understand that? That was because the whole show they don't even know that the band is Tim and I, the band, are there. We're in you can't see us. And it's
Because
only
yeah, there's the dancers that are in front, and you're sort of in the back of it.
in the back, right? Yeah. But at the end, the sort of thing comes up, and it's this drum solo, and then they go, "Oh my god!" You know, there's a band playing its music. So it was, yeah, I like that show. It was fun to play, and there was a lot of my percussion. Sort of what I do in dance class. I had my pedals, and a lot of the piece is me making sounds through pedals and little toys and little percussion things. So yeah.
And the setup that you have for example, for that show, is there a thought process? I need to have something on the cymbal or whatever, or is it just your regular setup that you bring in?
I don't really have a regular setup.
Talk to me about your setup.
I think the most prepared setup I ever prepared drums where you put stuff everywhere was Miles' second record that I played on, and it was all like that, you know, like triangles hanging a triangle on your cymbal, or splash cymbal on the snare drum. I mean, it's a little more common now, I guess. Back then, not that many people were doing it.
Right.
So it depends on the piece. It depends what I'm sort of. If I find a sound that I like, I'll play with it for a while. And that I did have that one. I was trying to get more of a bigger sound. I wouldn't say Bonham, but more of a rock,
right?
You know, rock kind of thing. So the floor tom is a 16, but with a skin cut out. You know, you just take the rim off the skin and put it on there, so it goes boom. You know, it's a very dead sound. It's a cool sound. You know, you get the sound man to really put a lot of bass on it. So that's my fake double bass drum thing. I do that between the kick and the floor tom, and yeah. So I was going for more of a rockish kind of sound, and the snare drum. Although on that, I did right at the end of the piece, I did get down to just drums, I think, except for a couple of things on the cymbals. But my snare drum is often a thing that holds a bunch of little toys as well.
Okay.
So I can't put it on an angle to play traditional, but
right. I see. So you have to put it
fall off.
Yeah. Okay.
But, yeah. So I think it goes back to the idea that a drum set is sort of like trap drums, like it was in vaudeville, where it's still a drum set because I'm a drummer, and I still like to have my hi-hat and my my hi-hat and my kick, but within that I put a bunch of different things
stuff on top. Right, exactly. No, it really adds to the percussion sound to it as you're playing with the dancer. And it's interesting because as I watch that, it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it's sort of you doing this sort of the same kind of idea, but this time with dancers sort of a composition, but there's improvisation. Sorry, as you're playing with the dancers during the show.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean that specific scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's totally improvised. I mean, but within that, there's things that I got to do it. I don't know how many times I did it, but it would evolve from night to night because it was improvised, and
Right.
we found something. And depending on how, because we did it in different places, depending on how the technology is working. Sometimes, so you're really thinking on a completely different level. It's almost like not even playing, because you're creating the lights and you're sort of reacting to how sensitive everything is and how it's working. So some nights, I mean, it never really false triggered or anything because we did good sound checks, but some nights it was definitely not as sensitive. And I tried something that, I remember the rim thing a lot, because that was one that I found was kind of cool, and I like the sound of it anyway. But and one night it wasn't working as well, but my floor tom was happening, so
floor tom night.
Yeah, that's it.
And quickly, just to wrap up with the dance company, but you just don't play drums. You also, like you say, you compose, and you also, I think you do setup.
There's a distinction. So there's dance accompaniment, like when you're with my good friend Johan La Liberté.
Yes, he was on the show last year, exactly.
Yeah, and shout out to Johan. And he does what well, we have a different setup, but he plays for dancers. So that's a day gig type of thing, and not just a day gig, but it's something that I do during the day.
During the rehearsal is what you're saying?
No, it's during a class.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's like a ballet accompaniment, but for modern. With Van Gleam Corsicre, I create the music for all the projects, and in Symphony 5.1, it just happened to be live music.
Okay.
Lots of times it's more soundtrack, more. Sometimes it's interactive music. And
it depends on the show, basically.
Depends on the show, yeah. So we've done a web series of 2050. There's the web series, there's the installation of 2050, and there's a stage piece. So there was 3 different things I did music for. There's a bunch of different things, installations.
No, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Again, I invite people to go check it out. I'll put the link into the chat. And very, very interesting. And you're still active with them, of course. Is there anything coming up with them for the 2022?
Well, hopefully the film will come out. It's a 15-minute piece called Mutations.
Okay.
And maybe we'll go on tour again. We gotta see, because we're gonna go on tour for F2050, the installation, and possibly the stage piece as well. But it got canceled. So mainly, my role right now is the new film.
Okay. Yeah. I wish you luck. I wish you luck that it comes out.
Thank you. I'll let you know.
Sure. We'll pass it along. What else is up for you? Are you going back to playing live shows with bands, or what's up for you for the next year or so?
I have a couple of. I've been working on something, but it seems to be. It hasn't gotten out of the
creative side.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten to playing with musicians, but I've been taking MIDI information from photos that I created, and you basically play a photo. Essentially, because you can turn any image into. You could turn an image into a MIDI file, essentially, with this thing called Photo Sounder.
Okay, I'm really intrigued.
And also in Ableton as well. In Ableton, you can. Well, Ableton, it's more like taking an audio sound and turning it into a MIDI file, but in this case, it's taking a photo. And like when I think even on Windows they have things where you play the music and this graph kind of comes up. with the
Right,
music.
right.
It's basically that technology,
I see.
but it translates into MIDI information. So
Interesting.
sometimes you get some great stuff, and sometimes you get nothing, or it's terrible. So the idea was using some of that sort of.
Interesting.
It's sort of taking yourself out of just playing whatever you feel on the keyboard or whatever. It's sort of having a limitation that's created by algorithms. So that's a project that I've been working on for a while. I have to get all the files I've put together and get them out so someone can play them with me live.
Interesting. What would a nice sunny day picture sound like? I'm curious.
Yeah. But what you start to realize is that it has a lot to do with the photo of the nice sunny day.
Okay.
How it's taken, the light in the photo.
Okay.
So you can fool around with a bit. You can sort of, the sunny day will still be there as more of a concept than a reality, right? Because already it's just a photo.
Uh-huh.
Right. So I mean, you can take the photo and just kind of make it darker and lighter and see what you get.
Right.
It's never going to really be music of a sunny day, but
no, it's not going to be like all of a sudden you got a sunny day and it sounds like the Beach Boys. It's not. but
lots of times it's very frustrating because you just don't get anything. It's just not, the photo's not, the algorithms don't
make something. Okay.
No. So, but sometimes you just kind of go, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then once you have a MIDI file, then you can put an Ableton and really mess around with it.
I see.
You can take out, like, do you know Ableton a bit? Have you?
I know of the DAW. I know a bit of it. I've never really tried it, but I know of it.
Okay, so there's one thing where you can turn a MIDI file into either a rhythm, a melody, or like a harmony.
Okay.
So you can take any sound and turn it into MIDI information. One will create a melody, one will create a harmony. And so these are things I do. Any sound I get, I put it through all these kind of things and try and come up with an interesting sound or an interesting melody. And I just let what I'm giving the computer, see where it leads me. And then ultimately it's my taste that's going to decide whether I use it or not. I mean, it's really, because very rarely is it just something you completely use. So it's kind of exciting. It's using technology, and it's anyway.
And quickly, no, it's very intriguing. Again, it's another part of you of coming from a different place, which is very interesting. But quickly, the program that takes the photograph to turn it into something else. What's the program?
Photo Sounder.
Photo Sounder, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up.
Have fun with it.
Maybe it'll give me a nice different beat or some sort of
Well, I mean, it's fantastic because just not worrying about where something ends or anything, but just playing along to the kind of pulse it creates. It's sort of this, open playing field where you can do what, you don't have to go to that part of the park to play in. You can just go and walk around and, sometimes it happens when you're playing a gig and it just feels like you can, go wherever, and there's a liberating feeling about that, But sometimes just playing on something you created on your own that you're not used to playing to also brings you to that place, because you kind of go, wow. Even if you start out by imitating it.
No, but if you give in a new idea to an imitation, that moves you to a different place and so forth and so on. So no, exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. My goodness. I don't know. Well, anyways, we're going to have to stop there, but very interesting. Thank you so much. So quickly, if people want to reach you, they want to check out the shows from the dance company, where can they go and check all that stuff?
It's through the company, or, just look me up online, and I'm around.
Okay, so the Facebook or the
Yeah,
Van Grim,
Facebook is good. Yeah.
Van Grim
And
de Corps Secret,
yeah,
which is
website.
the website,
Yeah, yeah.
which you will see, and you can just, I think you punched. That's what I did, Thom Gossage, in YouTube, and you'll see a couple of videos of you playing,
Yeah,
a couple of festivals.
it's there. All my records from Effendi when I was on Effendi Records. Miraculously, they're all on YouTube. So
Oh, there you go.
I don't know how they got there, but that's
That's technology.
another subject.
Well, Tom, thank you so much. I have been even more intrigued, and even more curious, and even more, to follow you and to know more about you.
Well, it's gone by really quickly. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much, and all the best to 2022. I hope that you find the picture that makes you a great melody, and I hope that the Corps Secret goes well, and that the movie is finished for you in the next year.
Thank you very much.
I wish you good night, and
Good night.
talk soon.
Okay, great.
So there you go. That was our show for tonight. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot of new things. Come back next week for more of Drumfills Cafe. Until then, stay safe and all the best to you. Take care. Bye.